Furious 7. It's like, how did we get here as a society? I can tell you real quick, many years ago, they made a remake of Point Break. But instead of surfing, we got street racing. And I'm okay with that. I really like the first Fast and Furious movie. And don't ask me, but somehow we've reached number 7 in the franchise of Fast and Furious films. So now let's talk about it. Hey there guys, how are you? By the way, on a quick side note before we dive into the review, I actually went into a used movie store the other day and bought the original 3 Fast and Furious films. I didn't own them on Blu-ray, and number 5 and 6 are sitting back there on the shelf, but yeah, I love the first one. Number 2 feels like a 2-hour MTV rap video that just keeps going and going for no reason, and Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift. So anyway guys, what is this movie all about? Well, it's not like the plot really matters whatsoever because the movie doesn't even care about the plot, so why should you? But I'll tell you anyway. You have Deckard Shaw, who's the villain of this movie, played by Jason Statham. My name's Jason Statham. Not bad, huh? And in this movie, he's out seeking vengeance against Toretto and his crew for taking down his brother, who was the villain in the previous Fast and Furious movie. And then for the next 2 hours of the movie, you get this big convoluted mess of a story and plot where they put characters in situations that don't really matter, and they only do so to show really cool action sequences. They're like, yeah, I have a good idea to put them in a desert and have explosions. Why are they going there? We don't know, just do it. And essentially, every character in this film becomes a superhero with super strength, superpowers, and the inability to get hurt. Yeah, everyone's Wolverine in this movie. And then, anything that can happen will happen. But I'm not hating. I knew I was getting all that judging by the trailers, and if that's what you expected judging by the trailers, well, you might enjoy this movie. Okay, let's talk about the cast of Furious 7. Once again, everyone returns. You got Vin Diesel. O'Connor, I'm over here. That's my Vin Diesel impression. Never again will I do that, and I'm sorry. And then you have Ludacris, Tyrese Gibson, or as I like to call him, Baby Boy. Have you ever seen the movie Baby Boy? Phenomenal movie. I really like it. And then once again, you had the baby oil dripping badass The Rock, and he returns as Hobbs. And in my personal opinion, well, I think Hobbs is one of the best things about Fast and Furious 5, 6, and I'd probably say he's one of the best things about 7. But the biggest complaint I have is he's in this movie for about 10 minutes. And that was kind of a letdown. It almost felt like they went out of their way to write him out of the story as much as they possibly could. You see him in the beginning of the movie, and then you see him in the end of the movie, and yeah, that was kind of a letdown for me. But every time you do see him on screen, well, it's some of the best moments in the movie. There's a shit ton of other people also in the movie. Oh, and you get Kurt Russell. Yeah, I haven't seen Kurt Russell in a movie since like 1996, and it was nice to see him once again, and he plays like this CIA black operatives type leader guy, and I thought he really worked for the role. I like seeing Kurt Russell. I don't know why, it just takes me back to a happy place in my childhood. Have you ever seen the movie Overboard? And last but certainly not least, you have the last performance given by Paul Walker go down in this movie. And I've said this once, and I'll say it again, I don't think Paul Walker's the best actor. I think he's just an okay actor. But the thing about Paul Walker is he's a likable guy, and he does have charisma, and I think in these Fast and Furious movies, where he plays the character of Brian, well, he works perfectly. And sometimes the camaraderie between him and Vin Diesel in these movies, I really buy into it. Now, with all that said, is it obvious throughout the film that Paul Walker was missing at some points? Yes and no. I think they did everything that they could in their creative power to kind of fill in the gaps, but yeah, it seemed a little bit obvious throughout the film that they did not have Paul Walker to actually utilize in some of these scenes, and it definitely felt like some of the rewrites were a little bit choppy, a little bit sudden at times, because you'll have scenes where they're kind of going somewhere, and then all of a sudden they just jump into something else, and you're like, yeah, something was supposed to fill in that gap. But yeah, every time that you see Paul Walker during the last half of this film, it's always from a wide shot, or he's always running away from the camera, or it's always an angle from here down during a fight sequence that's very fastly edited, and that's obviously because they didn't have Paul Walker to utilize for some of these scenes, and a lot of them you could almost tell it was one of his brothers, you know, filling in the gaps, running away, doing something, but there is a few scenes that contain a CGI Paul Walker face. It was a little bit off-putting. I thought they did what they could with it, and I will say this, it's definitely better than that Jeff Bridges CGI face that we got in Tron Legacy. And I will say that the tribute and send-off to his character, Paul Walker, not only his character in the movie, but him as a person was pretty, it was almost tear-jerking, and the lady beside me was crying. And I was like, yeah, that was pretty good. I might want to go cry, but I'm going to do it in the bathroom, because I'm still a man, everyone. I'm still a man. So here are my final flicking thoughts on the movie Furious 7. This movie is a little bit too convoluted for its own good, and it doesn't need to do that. Now, this movie at times does turn into a heist film where it gets a little bit over the top and they just start doing things that they don't need to do and waste a lot of the runtime in this movie just doing meaningless random shit. For example, there's this USB drive, a little piece of technology in the movie, that can track down anyone by using security cameras across the planet and all kinds of other random bullshit. And they spend so much time in this movie trying to track down this little piece of technology because they want to track down the bad guy, Shaw, of the film. But here's the thing. Shaw will show up at every occasion and every situation that they go to get this device. So if they go to this side of the planet, they go to that side of the planet, Shaw always tries to show up to kill all of them. So rather than track down this piece of technology, why not just wait for Shaw to show up, because he's done it 6 times already in the movie, and then ambush him? But it's like no one's brain thinks that way. And for me, when everyone's that dumb in a movie, it just takes me out of it. I don't mind the over-the-top, big, bloated action sequences, but just make people's IQs a little bit higher throughout the movie. But overall, I did enjoy this movie more than Fast and Furious 6. I thought it was just more intriguing. It had a better villain because Jason Statham. I'm Jason Statham. I'm a badass. That was probably the worst impression I've ever given in my life. So I'm going to give the movie Furious 7 a C+. Yeah, it's almost a B, and I think that's a fair score for a movie like this. I mean, as far as the action goes, it's fun. As far as seeing Paul Walker's last performance, it was a little bit emotional at times, and I thought they did everything they could with it. But yeah, as far as a movie goes, a conclusive movie, a C+ is a fair score. So anyway, guys, that's my take on Furious 7. Now here's my question to you. Let me know down below. What is your favorite Fast and Furious film, or what is your favorite Paul Walker film? Yeah, let me know down below, and if you haven't already, make sure you check out my last video. There's going to be a big thumbnail after this video. You just click it or link down below. And also follow me on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.